Ambassador Liana Ross stood still, eyes scanning the vast Galactic Council chamber. She was about to speak not just as a diplomat, but as the voice of millions back on Earth. For years, humans had carefully played this diplomatic game, earning respect as peacekeepers, negotiators who believed in the power of dialogue over war. But today, something had changed. Liana wasn't here to talk about ideals. She was here because her people were under attack. She paused, letting the silence fill the room. The representatives of alien civilizations stared back, some respectful, others barely hiding their contempt. One in particular, Zoran of the Santa Axons, lounged smugly in his seat, mocking her with a crooked smile. Liana's voice didn't waver. The Atreus system, home to human colonies, has been invaded by Zenian forces. Despite the treaties we all signed, families have been torn apart, children taken, lives burned to ash. She turned to the screen behind her. Footage flickered, homes in flames, civilians running, children screaming. "I'm not asking for sympathy," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm asking this council to honor the promises we all made, to enforce the laws that keep peace alive." A few heads nodded, some support but scattered, unsure. Then Zoran laughed, loud and cold. "Ambassador Ross," he said mockingly, "your passion is admirable, but feelings don't win wars. Treaties are not commands. They suggestions. And weak species do not make demands. They follow them." Liana gripped the podium. Her knuckles turned white. "So you admit you've broken the council's laws?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. Zoran smiled wider. "We protect what we claim. That's how the galaxy works." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some were shocked, others agreed. Then, a quiet voice from an older diplomat broke the tension. "We grieve for Earth," he said kindly. "But striking back at the Zenian Empire could ignite chaos. We cannot risk that." His words were calm, polite and crushing. Liana felt a cold weight settle in her chest. The council wouldn't help, not against the powerful. Earth was still seen as young, unimportant, but she wasn't done. "If we allow this," she said, louder now, "then what do our treaties even mean? If justice depends only on strength, what future are we building together?" No one responded. One by one, the representatives turned away, choosing silence over support. Liana took a deep breath. Her final words were clear. "If this council won't act, humanity will. We won't give up on the principles we believe in." The chamber emptied, her voice faded into the air, but she remained standing, eyes locked on the empty seats, a storm building inside her. They had their chance to do the right thing. "Now it's our turn." Liana stood in front of the transmission screen, her face lit by tension and resolve. One last time, she reached out to the Zexian leaders. Her voice was calm but firm. "In the name of every life you've hurt," she said, "I'm asking you to leave the Atreus system peacefully." There was sorrow in her tone, but rising beneath it was fury. The enemy had mistaken humanity's kindness for weakness, their diplomacy for fear, but Liana knew better. She knew her people. Compassion had its limits, and when pushed, they would fight. An aide stepped beside her, face heavy with unspoken understanding. "We gave them everything," Liana said quietly. "We never wanted war, but we won't leave our people behind." Then Zoran appeared on the screen, smirking, cold. "Ambassador Ross," he said with a sneer, "your kind still clings to words and ideals, as if they make you strong, but they don't. They make you weak." She stared back, unflinching. "This isn't about ideals," she replied. "It's about lives, families, children, and your actions break every agreement we once trusted." Zoran laughed and waved her off. "The strong take what they want. That's how the galaxy works. Maybe it's time you learned that." The screen went dark. She stood in silence, the weight of leadership growing heavier. New reports came in. Colonies attacked, people taken, families ripped apart. Her heart ached, but there was no time to mourn. In the war room, she faced her generals, scientists and advisors. Everyone carried the same look, pain and anger. One general leaned forward, voice hard. "We can't sit back anymore. Ambassador, our people are dying. The council turned its back on us." Liana felt those words settle deep inside her. They had held on to peace. They had begged for reason, even when mocked for it. Her voice broke slightly as she spoke. "Those values were never meant for just us. They were supposed to guide us all." A young scientist stood up. His hands trembled, but his voice didn't. "We held back our best weapons, our strongest technology. We trusted diplomacy, and they used it against us." The room fell quiet. Grief still lingered, but now it was hardened into something stronger. Determination. The general spoke again, quiet but final. "If they won't listen to reason, they'll hear us through fire." Liana nodded slowly, her eyes sharpened. "Then let's show them. Peace doesn't mean weakness. No more words, no more pleas." The last door of diplomacy had shut. Orders were given. Fleets readied, colonies braced. Liana watched from command, the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. They had built bridges, sacrificed pride, done everything to avoid war. But now, alone and ignored, humanity had no choice. Looking out at the stars, her voice was steady, almost a whisper. We didn't want this war, but we're not afraid of it. Across every command station, across every ship, the signal was the same. Prepare for what comes next. The silence was gone. Humanity had moved in hidden labs and underground bases. Scientists activated technologies long kept secret tools of war once buried under layers of diplomacy. But now, diplomacy was no longer the front line. That era had ended. This was the moment the Galactic Council never saw coming. For decades, humanity had held back, cautious, patient, hopeful. But now, they unleashed everything. The Zenian Empire, still basking in what it believed was victory, had no idea what was coming for them. Human fleets tore through hyperspace with surgical precision, appearing across star systems in the blink of an eye. Outposts vanished, defenses collapsed. Panic swept through the Zenian command, but their alarms came too late. Earth's response wasn't wild or chaotic. It was cold, sharp, calculated. Supply lines were severed, weapon silos destroyed, communication hubs silenced. Strike after strike, lean, fast and unstoppable. Then, one message echoed across the stars. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a statement of truth. Humanity will stand for its own. That message rippled through alien cities, council chambers, and Zenian war rooms. No threats, no grand speeches. Just a warning dressed as a promise. Inside the Galactic Council chamber where, once calm, debate ruled, there was only stunned silence. For the first time, the galaxy understood. They had underestimated the wrong species. Reports rolled in, each more chilling than the last. The humans, once dismissed as naive idealists, had become something terrifying, a force of precision and purpose. And still they held back. Civilians were never touched, no homes were burned, no innocents harmed. Each strike was a message. We're not here to destroy. We're here to set the line. Even in the face of betrayal, humanity refused blind revenge. That restraint, that choice, is what shook the galaxy to its core. Because it proved one thing: mercy wasn't weakness, it was control. In council halls across the galaxy, fear mixed with something else. Respect. Those who once laughed at humanity now whispered across species lines, wondering how they had been so blind. The peace Earth once offered had never been a limit. It had been a decision. Then, Ambassador Liana Ross returned her image broadcast to the council once more, calm, composed, unshaken. We honored our treaties, she said. We believed in cooperation. We believed trust could build something greater. Her voice echoed across the room. But trust, once broken, becomes a weapon. And now, she said, her eyes steady, we are taking back what was stolen. The chamber stayed silent. Some listened in quiet respect, others in fear, but all of them understood too late what humanity truly was. And Liana's words weren't just for the Zenian Empire. They were for everyone. They had stood by silent while injustice unfolded. For too long the galaxy had watched, said nothing, and moved on. Humanity had shown restraint, pleaded for peace. But their patience, though deep, was not endless. And now the consequences were rippling outward. As human fleets pushed deeper into Zenian territory, the impact spread like shockwaves across the stars. Entire systems watched as precision replaced chaos. These weren't random assaults. They were warnings, wrapped in fire and delivered with terrifying focus. Stories began to spread. Not tales of blind destruction, but of a new kind of reckoning, measured, deliberate, and justified. An empire wasn't being burned to the ground, it was being taken apart, piece by piece, by a species that had begged for peace, and been denied. Humanity didn't just bring war, they brought discipline sharpened by grief, vengeance with rules, justice with teeth. And in the final act, the fleet reached the very heart of the Zenian Empire. The great stronghold of Zoran, once believed to be impenetrable, lay exposed. Zoran, the once arrogant architect of domination, stood powerless. The shields had failed, his fleets shattered, his pride hollow. Only now did he grasp the truth. He hadn't underestimated Earth's weapons, he had underestimated their will, a species that chose peace, until peace was no longer an option. And now, under the watchful gaze of the galaxy, the Zenian leadership, once untouchable, finally bent the knee. They turned to the same council they had once controlled, begging for intervention, for delay, for anything to stop the collapse. But this time humanity didn't plead, they didn't ask, they declared. Reparations would be made, lives must be answered for, balance would be restored.